Tonight, the leader of Edinburgh City Council quits. Cammy D is facing allegations he's been sending sexually explicit messages to Ukrainian refugees. He's been one of Scottish Labour's highest profile politicians. Also making the headlines, reaction to the end of a dictatorship. As Assad's grip on power ends, Syrians who settled in Scotland after fleeing their homeland are celebrating.
I don't know, I'm crying yesterday because the Assad's leave and school is open, all the doctors, you have a hospital now, everything.
People with long COVID still aren't getting treatment. A former NHS nurse tells STV they've been left to rot. And in sport, ahead of their Champions League game, Celtic warn fans to be vigilant after supporters are targeted in Zagreb. I'm Kellyanne Woodland. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. He was Scottish Labour's most senior politician outside of Parliament. But tonight, Cammy D has resigned as leader of Edinburgh City Council. He was suspended by his own party after newspaper allegations at the weekend over messages to Ukrainian refugees. Well, police have confirmed the matter is being investigated. Our senior reporter Gordon Cree is at the City Chambers for us tonight. And Gordon, what more do you know?
Well, in recent weeks, Cammy D has been talking as someone who intended to be a city and indeed regional leader for some time to come. But in the wake of this Sunday Mail story, his political career is tonight surely over. His resignation came just in the last couple of hours after what he described as commentary on my personal life. He said that was detracting from the important work the council does for the people of Edinburgh. Now, I understand that his position in recent days had been that he didn't know what the allegations were about, but today he has said that he will cooperate fully with the police inquiry, although he is yet to be contacted. And I think it's worth pointing out that in his statement he does not address the substance of the allegations, nor does he deny anything. In his 2 years as the capital's council leader, Cammy D has been a high-profile figure.
I'm Councillor Cammy D, I'm the council leader at the City of Edinburgh Council.
During his many TV interviews, visible support for Ukraine has never been far away. But he's now facing allegations he sent unsolicited messages to Ukrainian refugees who said they felt unable to ignore him. He's said to have talked about sex and meeting up. Today, at an event to mark the opening of a new cycle path linking Roseburn to the Union Canal, one of his team faced questions.
This weekend has been quite tough. The party has moved very swiftly. I think it's at this stage I'm not really willing to be drawn too much into the detail. Councillor Day has been suspended from the Labour Party and is no longer a member of the Labour group.
He said the issue of resignation was one for Councillor Day to address, but opponents were united in calling for him to go.
These are very serious allegations against Councillor Day, and right now we must see a full and thorough investigation into this. But my first thoughts are really with the victims of this, and we must do everything as a council and a city to support them.
We need a council leader that is able to focus on the big issues which Edinburgh is facing right now, and against the backdrop of his party suspension and a police investigation, it's right that he resigns.
Whatever the outcome of the investigation into the allegations against him, if he's going to fight that, it's going to be a huge distraction from any work as council leader. So he really must look at his position and resign immediately, I would suggest.
With Labour only the third biggest party on the council, despite being the administration, tonight it's not just the leadership that could change, but potentially which group that leadership comes from too.
So what happens now, Gordon?
Well, the council chief executive has confirmed that he has received Cammy Day's resignation as leader. There'll be a full council meeting on Thursday of next week. That was already scheduled, but at that, each group will put forward their nomination for leader. But no party has a majority on the council. The SNP has the most seats, followed by the Liberal Democrats, Labour and the Conservatives. So it's going to take some combination of two or more of those parties to get a leader over the line. And I can tell you from conversations I've had today, the deal making, the horse trading has already begun. These are crucial times for Edinburgh Council, with the budget setting process to happen early in the new year. But all of that has tonight been thrown into turmoil. Kellyanne.
OK, Gordon, with the latest. Thank you very much. Syrians living in Scotland are celebrating the fall of the President Bashar al-Assad. The country's leader was toppled at the weekend after a swift offensive by rebel groups. This afternoon, the Foreign Secretary described him as the rat of Damascus who's fled to Russia with his tail between his legs. Well, meanwhile, the Home Office has paused decisions on Syrian asylum claims. Here's our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie.
On the streets of the Syrian capital, they're celebrating the fall of the president, Bashar al-Assad. The dictator has fled to Russia, where he's been granted asylum. His 24-year reign brought to a sudden end after rebel groups streamed into Damascus at the weekend. In Glasgow, the news was also greeted with celebrations by Syrians who fled his brutal regime. Ali al-Sharif escaped the fighting in Raqqa in northern Syria, arriving here in 2019.
I am happy because the Assad is going. I'm sad before that too many people stay in the different country and too many people are scared, don't know what's going on.
His teenage son Mohammed was just 3 years old when the civil war began.
I'm crying yesterday because the Assad is leave and school is open, all the doctors, you have a hospital now, everything. I'm very happy.
I'm happy, very happy.
Ahmed, like so many other Syrians, has dreamed of this day all his life.
5 days, no sleep, because when Erdogan, Bashar al-Assad.
And is this your front room?
This is the first time he's seen his home in the city of Homs since it was destroyed in an attack 12 years ago. The area was off limits until Saturday. His brother sent him these images today.
What was it like? شعور صعب جدا.
It was so difficult to see, he says. But it's not just me, it's all Syrians, all of Syria. It's the same thing. Omar fled the civil war with his family and moved to Aberdeen in 2016.
I'm over moon for this one. I feel like I can't describe my happiness. Devil, if you can imagine, devil who will come after Assad is better than Assad. He is the worst criminal in this earth.
The Assad family's 53-year grip on power is over. New horrors are being uncovered by the hour, including underground prisons. But the toppling of the regime brings hope for Syrians around the world. Hope that had been lost in the long years of conflict. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
A former NHS nurse with long COVID says they've been left to rot after new figures shared exclusively with STV News reveal only a tiny proportion of people with the condition have received treatment, and millions of pounds of long COVID funding has not yet been paid to health boards. Well, the data obtained via a Freedom of Information request by Scottish Labour found only 2 health boards have established long COVID clinics and 3 have no plan in place to treat these patients. Our political reporter Laura Alderman has this exclusive story.
Basically, I've got them from a bladder. That's just the morning supplements.
Before the pandemic, Cass didn't need these handfuls of different medications just to get through the day. Whilst working as a nurse at Edinburgh's Western General Hospital during the first wave of COVID, Cass was infected with the virus and has never recovered.
That was the day that had completely changed my life. I cannot cook a meal. It is very rare that I can shower. I'm still waiting. I'm waiting 2 years now to see, almost 2 years now, to see a social worker for a care assessment. You know, I've been told I can't work again. I now need a wheelchair. if I'm trying to leave the house. I spend most of my life in this chair because trying to do anything after a few minutes, I am in an awful lot of pain or I feel dizzy.
In 2021, the Scottish Government vowed to spend £10 million on long COVID over 3 years. But Cass says they've yet to feel any benefits of that.
I feel like I've been left to rot, but it's almost like people want to believe the pandemic is over and done with. And I think people want to pretend that we don't exist or we've all got better. There's still no real effective treatments. And that's kind of been the story since 2020.
New data obtained by Scottish Labour via a Freedom of Information request found as few as 2% of people reporting long COVID symptoms could have been seen through the £10 million fund, of which more than £3 million has still not been spent. Only 2 health boards have established long COVID clinics, and 3 have no plan in place for treating these patients, despite receiving cash from the fund.
Those FOIs, they just showed as well the massive inequalities and inequities. For my life, that has had no impact whatsoever. I've seen no benefits.
GPs say the funding is welcomed but too short-sighted.
The money has not been enough to employ a doctor as part of that team, and that's the bit that's absolutely crucial. There are other health boards who really struggle to recruit to their teams because all the money that's been in place so far has been very short-term, and people aren't able to employ and recruit on annual contracts. So currently, it really depends where you live as to what you get.
The Scottish Government says it's providing an extra £4.5 million in the recent budget for specialist support for ME, long COVID and chronic fatigue conditions.
I always welcome additional money coming from the government, but there is a question as to how much of this is truly additional, given that they've underspent their budget already and given that they are not even touching the sides in terms of dealing with the need of people struggling with long COVID.
Cass and others with long COVID argue better treatments could help them get back to work and get on with the lives many feel they've lost to the virus. Laura Alderman, STV News, Edinburgh.
OK, let's take a look at other stories across Scotland now. And part of the wreckage of the plane blown up in the Lockerby bombing is being moved to the US ahead of the trial of the man alleged to have helped make the bomb. Scotland's prosecution service says the transfer of evidence includes some of the main body of Pan Am Flight 103, where passengers and crew would have been seated. Libyan national Abu Ajila Massoud is due to go on trial in May. He denies the 3 charges against him. A 41-year-old woman has died after being attacked by a dog at a flat in Aberdeen. Emergency services were called to a property on the city's Forster Hill Road on Saturday night. Police Scotland confirmed the dog involved has been put down. Now, after years on NHS waiting lists, patients from all over Scotland are being referred to national treatment centres, which are attempting to address the bitter backlogs. On a visit to the news site at the Golden Jubilee Hospital in Clyde Bank, John Swinney told STV News Scotland increasingly has the resources, facilities and staff needed to transform clinical care. Caitlin Hutchison has more.
Cutting-edge technology,
see how it won't let you go any further?
Thankfully left to the experts within Scotland's NHS, and helping people who've spent years languishing on waiting lists. Knee replacement patients Wendy and Frank are now 3 weeks post-op.
3.5 years suffering with chronic pain. Within a day I had my surgery. 2 days later I was out, and it was 3 weeks ago tomorrow. No sticks. Doing my garden yesterday. Brilliant.
I was kind of assigned to the east coast of Scotland, to the hospitals over there. But I got a phone call from them to say, look, you're going to have to wait another year. But if you come to the Jubilee, then we can do it in 3 months for you.
Scottish Labour say there has been a mystifying 43% drop in referrals here this September compared to last. But Mr Swinney today told journalists the facility will be a fantastic boost to capacity within the NHS.
This newly opened surgical centre in Clyde Bank is part of a network of 10 sites all around the country set up to tackle extremely long NHS waiting lists for non-urgent care. Already, NHS Golden Jubilee accounts for around 30% of all hip and knee replacements in Scotland, a figure that is just set to grow in the years to come.
Here at the Jubilee we have two of the Mako robotic joint replacement systems that allows us to use robotic technology to assist us in hip replacement, total knee replacement and partial knee replacement surgery. To date we've done just over 2,500 of those cases here, and last year we were the highest volume robotic orthopaedic centre in the United Kingdom.
During his visit, the First Minister was also questioned on concerns with the quality of CT scan reports by one radiologist who worked at multiple hospitals and was responsible for identifying health issues like cancer. It's prompted the review of more than 1,000 images.
I understand there has been relatively little impact or difference in the experience of individual patients, but obviously it's important in all these circumstances every single case is examined to be assured of patient safety.
Local NHS boards say they're contacting the small number of affected patients. Meanwhile, though national treatment centres like this one are now operational and more are on the way, their doors are yet to open and record waits continue to be a persistent challenge. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News, Clydebank.
A man will stand trial next year accused of having items to make explosive devices in the West End of Glasgow. Shazad Khan is charged with making or having gunpowder, shotgun cartridges and fireworks at a flat in Broomhill. The 51-year-old has pleaded not guilty to the charge. A nurse who knocked down and killed a grandad out walking his dog has been ordered to carry out 300 hours of unpaid work. Pamela Kennedy struck Martin Cawley and his pet in Glasgow's Well House in February 2023. The 35-year-old claimed she swerved to avoid hitting the dog and did not see Mr. Cawley. Now, a father whose son drowned in the Clyde more than 8 years ago is calling for people to stop vandalising life rings on the banks of the river. Christopher Spears was 28 when he lost his life after coming home from a night out. Rahim Cham reports.
He was so friendly, so happy, and he's left a big hole in our life.
Duncan Spears is still grieving his son after 8 years. In January 2016, Christopher was walking home from the city centre, coming back from a night out. Amid stormy weather, he tried crossing the Squiggly Bridge, but the area was sealed off by police due to debris falling off from a nearby building. Christopher attempted to bypass the police cordon, which led to his tragic death.
He had to climb over the fence and he tried to shimmy along and try to get by a gap between the security fence and the bridge, but he lost his footing and he grabbed onto the bottom rail. He was holding onto the bottom rail, and the police, he was shouting for help and the police heard him, but they couldn't get to him because of the security fence. They tried to get a life ring and they had to come out of the cordon and try to get a life ring, and they eventually got one. They flung it out, but it was obviously too late.
Duncan and Glasgow Humane Charity want people to realise how important the life rings are along the Clyde, with at least 800 cases of vandalism reported in the last year.
If you're taking a life belt, you could potentially take a life. The risks and the consequences could be fatal at the other side of it. We're asking people also at Christmas parties, if they're having a drink and that, just be a bit wary of going home and round about the river, and be careful.
They are also calling for tougher penalties.
Duncan Spears is working with the Scottish Government to change the law to make it a more serious offence if you steal or vandalise one of the life rings. But you can be charged with theft or culpable and reckless conduct as it stands just now.
One of the main causes of people drowning in the Clyde is not just the lack of the skill set to swim, but also cold water shock. The Christmas festive season comes with high level of celebrations, but also very low temperatures, making it even more likely for people to die when they fall onto the river.
Currently, there is a life ring every 100 meters. They are now attached to ropes, so people can be pulled to safety more easily.
And the ropes are made in memory of Christopher. So the colour purple is to represent Christopher. So that's Christopher's colour, you know, and we find some comfort in it because we know that it's his rope.
Christopher's dad hopes that no other family goes through the pain of losing a loved one, especially during the festive period. Rahim Cham, STV News, Glasgow.
OK, lots coming up in sport now, and the focus, Rahman, turns to Europe.
It sure is, Kellyanne. Celtic, Rangers and Hearts all playing in different European competitions this week, and on the eve of Celtic's Champions League match against Dinamo Zagreb, we've been speaking to defender Alistair Johnston.
STV Sport, sponsored by C.R. Smith this Christmas.
Good evening. Alistair Johnston says tomorrow night's Champions League clash against Dinamo Zagreb is a great opportunity for Celtic to secure points away from home. Ahead of the match, the Parkhead club are warning supporters to be vigilant after being alerted that some fans have been targeted in Zagreb. Meanwhile, ahead of Rangers' Europa League showdown against Tottenham Hotspur on Thursday, John Souttar admits their 3-0 win over Ross County was the perfect start to a big week for the club. Preparing for the next Champions League challenge, the Celtic players trained in Glasgow this morning before flying to Zagreb. Brendan Rodgers' side have impressed in this season's competition with 8 points from their first 5 games and are currently in the playoff spots.
It'll be a great atmosphere, but it's also a great chance for us to go and pick up points on the road, which we struggled with against Dortmund. We found our feet against Atalanta, and now this is a great chance to go out there and see if we can push on and potentially pick up all 3 points. But either way, we're expecting a big match. I know the travelling support will be great, but I think it'll be a really special night either way.
Celtic survived a couple of scares against Hibs on Saturday, but ultimately ran out 3-0 winners. Arne Engels opened the scoring before a Joe Newell own goal and a sublime finish from Kyogo Furuhashi rounded off the victory. Rangers won by the same scoreline against Ross County yesterday, with Hamza Igaman impressing again. He put the visitors 1 up. Danilo then pounced on an error from goalkeeper Jack Hamilton to double their advantage. James Tavernier made it 3 late on.
Tremendous individual players, but they're under a bit of pressure just now, so it's probably, as much as I was saying it was good timing for us, because this has probably been the highest part of our season so far, arguably it's the lowest part of their season so far, so I think it's a great time to get them, but when you're an Old Firm player, a Rangers player, expectation levels are there every time you step onto the pitch, so the fans will be demanding a positive result.
Neil Critchley says Hearts are relishing their Conference League match against Copenhagen on Thursday night. The Tynecastle side moved off the bottom of the Premiership following their 2-0 win over Dundee at the weekend, with Lawrence Shankland scoring both, the captain ending a 12-game run without finding the net. Elsewhere, Tony Watt's header in the 94th minute won Motherwell all 3 points against St Mirren, while Bruce Anderson's penalty in the 95th minute earned Kilmarnock a draw against Dundee United. 2 very late goals in the Premiership there. To rugby, and we can beat anybody. The words of Glasgow Warriors coach Nigel Carolan ahead of their Champions Cup match away to Toulon this weekend, while Edinburgh boss Sean Everett says it will take a monumental effort to defeat Bayonne in their next Challenge Cup clash on Friday. Franco Smith's side started their European campaign with an impressive 6-try bonus point win over Sale Sharks on Saturday. Edinburgh lost their opening pool match to Gloucester by 15 points to 10.
When we've fronted up in games, I think maybe some, up until now, we've been regarded as the underdog, but we've got to, we've proven now already that we can beat anybody. So we don't see ourselves as the underdog anymore, and I think it's probably flipped on its head. I think any team that ever comes to play against us, they talk about how dangerous we're going to be, and but we know we got to. That's in our control, and it's something that we got to put onto the pitch every week.
They made it clear that they wanted to win the EPCR, so we're not underestimating the squad that they're going to bring. I believe that they will bring a full team, the best team to play us on Friday night. That's what we need as Edinburgh Rugby as well, but it's going to take a monumental effort from us.
To snooker, and the Scottish Open got underway in Edinburgh today. John Higgins is through to the second round, but 3 Scots are out. Higgins defeated Ian Burns by 4 frames to 2 in his first round match, with the Wizard of Wishaw making 4 50-plus breaks. Graham Dott, Anthony McGill and Scott Donaldson all lost their first round games.
STV Sport, sponsored by C.R. Smith this Christmas.
And just more on the snooker, Kellyanne. Gary Wilson, the defending champion, is also out. That's it from me tonight.
All right, Rahman, thank you very much. All right, well, it's been a crisp winter's day. Let's get your forecast now from Sean.
A breezy morning will be followed up with a flurry of fresh delights for lunch. TUI sponsors STV weather.
A very good evening to you. I've got good news for you this week. The weather's going to be quiet and largely dry. No storms to worry about this week. We've got high pressure in charge, but it is going to be a cold one. Very cold nights to come this week, and we could see fog patches lingering in the afternoons. That's the sort of weather we've had occasionally over the last several weeks, and where it does linger, temperatures will stay below freezing. But a very cold night to come tonight, particularly around Stirlingshire, the Highlands. Those temperatures down to about -5 or -6, and we will see, as I say, some mist and fog patches developing. And I think in parts of North and South Lanarkshire, perhaps towards lights of Renfrewshire through Glasgow and West Lothian, Stirlingshire, we'll see some mist and fog patches still lingering through tomorrow afternoon. Very, very slow to clear, and that does mean our temperatures in these spots probably staying around freezing or slightly below in some spots. At best tomorrow, 4 or 5 degrees the west coast and also the Hebrides, but for most of us it's a dry and bright day. Wednesday and Thursday, not much change. High pressure still around. We've still got the quiet weather. Still the risk though of some mist and fog patches lingering into the afternoons, keeping our temperatures down around freezing. A little bit more cloud coming in from the south during Thursday, but temperature wise, I say it is going to stay on the cold side, maybe just rising ever so slightly towards the end of the week, but that would just mean 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. But yes, quite foggy over the next couple of days, parts of Glasgow and Lanarkshire, but then a bit more cloud later in the week. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV weather.
I'll be back with your late news at 10:30. Then Colin will have Scotland Tonight. Until then, from all of us here on the team, bye-bye.